Hey everybody, Zeal Brothers here once again with another video. And this one I want to talk about Thanksgiving and why that's such a great holiday. Now, I know Thanksgiving is under attack, and the reason that it's under attack is because people think that it celebrates genocide. And nothing could really be further from the truth. And when you look at the story of the first Thanksgiving, it's just filled with a lot of miraculous things that happen. Well, basically you have these pilgrims who meet these Native Americans. One of the Native Americans knows English miraculously and is able to help these pilgrims. This Native American was freed from Spain by a priest who knew the scriptures then, and he went back to his home country, but he couldn't go back to his nation because you got to think, a lot of people think of the Native Americans as one block, but it's thousands of many different nations in what we would call Native Americans. And so he goes back to his country and is gone. And so when the pilgrims arrive, they find fields that are already planted and things like that. But he's the one who is from that tribe that's missing, and he kind of gloms onto them. And long story short, when you look at the first Thanksgiving, it's a lot about the providence of God. And that's the reason that they gave thanks. Now, if you don't want to believe in God, you could say simply that they were thanking God because they were so lucky. But luck is something I truly don't believe in. I see the hand of God in a lot of things that people would consider to be fortunate or lucky. So when you look at these pilgrims, odds were stacked against them that they would even survive, and they thank God that they were able to survive. And that's where Thanksgiving really comes from. And when you look at our culture, I believe that the reason that Thanksgiving is under attack is really because thanks itself is under attack. Gratitude is under attack. And I'll give you just a quick example. Let's imagine that you are somebody who wants to be part of the new civil rights movement. You've joined it in the last year, and you are supporting Black Lives Matter. And what are you going to say when you support Black Lives Matter? You're going to say that America is a racist country and it is terrible. And a week ago, you would have been saying the fact that Ahmaud Arbery didn't survive is proof that America is a racist country. And you will be spouting these things, and you get the impression, if you listen to the modern civil rights activists, that the country is as bad as it's ever been. When George Floyd died, you got this argument that black men could just be killed on the streets like dogs. And the argument was that America is so bad for black people. Now, there needs to be a reflection of reality. And that's where Thanksgiving gets us. Because Thanksgiving is not to whitewash everything that happened. But Thanksgiving acknowledges where we came from and why we are fortunate to be where we are now. Because let's just trace it back a little bit. Because while George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery are dead and they will not come back, let's look to today and look at Ahmaud Arbery's killers were held. Basically, they got the penalty that they deserved to get. They were convicted of felony murder. And when you look at George Floyd, it is hard for me to believe that a lot of people don't believe that there was some justice in the George Floyd case. But even further back, when you look at just the changing attitudes, I think of myself. I am involved in an interracial marriage, and my wife's grandfather probably had some racial tendencies in his younger days. When he met me, he loved me. And it just talks about the changing attitudes in America. Obama was elected president. Tupac said in one of his lines that we'll never see a black president. And that was a strongly held belief. Everybody just assumed that was the case. 2008, Obama gets elected. How does that happen if most of the nation is racist? And I'm not saying that the nation doesn't have problems, but there needs to be a reckoning of thanks for the progress that is made. Because 2021 is not as bad as 2005. It is not as bad as 1970, which was not as bad as 1950, which is not as bad as 1805. And the point is that progress has been made. But why is progress under attack? The reason that progress is under attack is because people are pretending progress is not made to justify the movements that they've created. Because nuance doesn't sell anything. It is hard to sell a civil rights movement when you say, hey, we made a lot of progress. But we have a little bit more to go. We want to do this proposal. We want to do that proposal. Black people are behind in these things, and we need to support these different initiatives to get this goal. Nope, you're not going to do that. You're going to say America just as bad. Black people are enslaved, because that enrages. And while it is false, it is better at creating political momentum. And that's why people lie. Now, I'm not a liar, so I can't say that. Maybe that will make me a bad politician, but I cannot lie when I see the progress that has been made. It is the same thing that galls me about the feminist movement. One of the most poisonous organizations in the world are the feminist organizations, because all they do is act like women are still in chattel slavery. They still act like women are owned today. In fact, one of the worst comments we ever received in one of our videos was by a feminist who was talking about the fact that marriage itself was an idea of enslaving women and owning women. Forgetting the fact that when it comes to marriage, most women are pushing marriage and most men are like, I don't know. So when you talk about women and the rights that women have achieved, you cannot deny that the women have rights today because men have given them rights. If it was about physical force, women would not have rights. That is why they don't have rights in the Middle East often enough. So when you look at the rights that the Western women have, what they have done is they've taken for granted all the progress that has been made. So they take for granted that women's suffrage couldn't exist unless men, who were the only ones who had any rights at that time to vote, to enact law, right? These men had to change the law against their own interest. The same with the civil rights movement. They had to. White people had to change their minds from their racial tendencies to have a more broad perspective. And I think the fact that people, let's just be real, people don't change their minds very often. When I go out there and I talk to people about the gospel of Jesus Christ, it is shocking when somebody listens. And it is shocking because people rarely change their minds. Have you ever been in a debate with somebody? You talk to somebody and you prove them dead wrong to the point where they even are stuttering. I've been there before. You will be shocked if you really think that they're going to change their mind. They're not going to change their mind. They're just going to go back and double down on what they already think. It doesn't matter if you prove them dead wrong. They're still going to believe it. How many times have you seen comedians do specials where they go in there and they interview the crowd and they give all the wrong talking points, but say the person that they're voting for said it and that person agrees with it. And when they turn around and tell the person that actually was wrong, that person still tries to defend what they did. They will not change their vote. And so the point is when people change their minds, that's a momentous occasion. One that we should thank God for, because it doesn't happen often. And when the country changes mind towards women, and when the country changes mind towards minorities, not everybody changed their minds, but enough Americans changed their mind to create a sea change. That is something worth giving thanks for. The fact that I can go out and I don't have to fear a cop just randomly targeting me, despite what people say, I don't have to fear that. And I'm saying this as somebody who was beaten up by a cop, just full disclosure. But I don't have to fear being assaulted by a cop for no reason, for the most part, any more than anybody else would, because of the progress that has been made. I'll tell you what I do fear. What I fear is a bunch of left-wing, wild losers that want to cancel everything I'm doing. Somebody who wants to look at everything I'm doing, find out where I'm working, and tell them to fire me. Get YouTube to cancel this channel. Get everything that I'm done canceled. That's what I'm really afraid of now. So just thank God for the progress that we have made, which allows many of you loser SJW types to even be able to speak. Because in the past, and maybe rightly so, we would have slapped the back of your head and punched the spit out of your mouth. But now you get the freedom to talk the stupidity that you think. And that in itself is some sense of progress, even if it is sometimes a regression.